Quick comment on, you know Scott Bessent. He's probably come by. You've interviewed him. This is a guy's an old school, elegant Southerner, sharp as a tack, pro-growth. I think he's a mainstay of the Trump cabinet. What do you think, Senator Kennedy? What's your view of him?
Here's what I think the Treasury Secretary understands well. When moms and dads lie down to sleep at night and can't, the thing that they're most worried about is high prices. That's not to say they're not worried about other things, but it's high prices, and we can't lose sight of that. We can get these high prices down, but we're going to have to do three things, and I think Scott understands it. Number one, we've got to reduce spending. Number two, we've got to deregulate the economy so goods and services cost less. And number three, we've got to redesign the tax code so it looks like somebody designed it on purpose. As you pointed out, since 2010, GDP growth has averaged a little over 2%. That's not enough. It's got to be 3% or better. That will stimulate the economy and grow wages. If we do those three things, as I think the Treasury Secretary understands, people will be able to deal with these high prices, and products and services will go down. But we're not talking enough. We're talking about the things we need to do, Larry, to get high prices down, but we're not tying them together for the American people. And the Treasury Secretary is very good at that. Yeah. Most of the publicity has been on the spending cuts. And look, I'm all for them. I think Elon Musk is a rock star. The tofu crowd is mad. But, you know, when you trim fat, pigs squeal. That's just the way the world works. That's the law of nature.
Because when prices were rising in the United States, I didn't hear CNN talking about that much. As a matter of fact, you ignored most of it while it was hurting the American people. So let the president negotiate on tariff policy. That is what he's doing, and it's going to work out to the better. You didn't cover it the way it needed to be covered. Let's just be perfectly honest.
Okay, well, that's a matter of opinion.
You let the last administration get away with it, but the American people suffered as a result.
All right, guys, so we got to talk about the economy, Biden's economy, because the mainstream liberal media and the Democrats are finally acknowledging the truth, which is that Biden's economy is bad. Even though back in January, when Biden was still in office, CNN, these same people claimed that no, the economy is great. Everything is amazing.
Flashback.
I mean, I don't know. I mean, I look at today, Donald Trump is inheriting one of the best economies that a president has inherited in a very long period of time. If you look at the fact that something like net migration at the border is lower than it was even before Donald Trump took office. If you want to look at the stock market, you're looking at the stock market rising.
I'm
not even finished running it down yet. This is the first time.
The border needs to be secured further, and this number can be accurate.
But this is the first time. This is the first time in dozens of years that a president has actually inherited a government where we don't have soldiers overseas in active combat zones. So, I mean, let's actually look at where we are. We actually, or he is actually inheriting a government right now that is much better than any predecessor he's had before.
A few moments later.
That the word of the day has to be uncertainty, John. I mean, the economic future of this country is deemed to be uncertain. When you look at these numbers, there's no economic indicator that shows that we are actually in the midst of a healthy or growing economy. Whether or not you're looking at job numbers, whether or not you're looking at wage numbers, whether or not you're looking at the stock market, there is nothing this president or Elon Musk or the House or Senate have done which actually show that economically we're on solid footing. I mean, and that's just a fact. Regardless of who comes on here, what panelist comes on here, what member of Congress comes on here, they can't point to one economic indicator that says that this economy is growing or going in the right direction. And again, this is what voters voted for.
We're currently living in Biden's economy, and it looks as if Biden's economy may or may not go into a recession. Now, I personally believe that we have been in a recession for a long time now. The mainstream liberal media just refuse to acknowledge it, but I believe that we have, okay, especially in the private sector, because our economy has been subsidized by the government, okay? The economy under Joe Biden is fake. Okay, it was an economy propped up by government spending and fake government jobs that lead to no real productivity. And the Trump administration is trying to change that. Okay. And that's what I want to talk about here today, because Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent gave a good speech, a good talk at the Economic Club in New York and also on CNBC to inform the American people about exactly what the Trump administration is doing. Like, what is the strategy of the Trump administration using tariffs? And also when it comes to reducing government spending and promoting growth in order to deal with the debt / the deficit, while also at the same time trying to rein in inflation. This is not an easy job. Okay, the Trump administration inherited a terrible economy from Joe Biden. It is going to take some time. But I think that people should really understand and be educated about what the Trump administration is doing. So I want to go ahead and play a clip here of Scott Bessent discussing the strategy on tariffs, which, by the way, if the tariffs are meant to eventually be able to lower taxes for the American people, low key, I'm totally fine with that. But they're being used as a negotiation strategy. And again, potentially they can be used, if they're permanent, to give a tax cut to the American people if our trading partners don't capitulate to our demands. Take a look.
One thing we don't talk about a lot, and I think we're going to, is the tariff income. Mm-hmm. Right now we have substantial tariff income from China that President Biden left on. Mm-hmm. And if we have new tariff income, we won't be able to score that since it won't go through the legislative process. But I could tell you that could be very substantial. And if you think about when people say, oh, tariffs are a regressive tax, that, well, are they a regressive tax if you then use the income from tariffs to no tax on tips, no tax on Social Security, no tax on overtime, making auto loans tax deductible? Those four policies, which President Trump put forward during the campaign, all accrue to the bottom 50% of wage earners and working Americans. So, could you have a tariff policy that is in finances income tax cuts and real income increases for the bottom 50%? I think that'd be pretty great. Mm-hmm.
Look at what's happened. There's a new paper out called the China Shock, and it talks about what happened post-2004, that some of the communities recovered, but the workers never recovered. And that it was much more devastating on a human level. And what we are trying to do is make free trade fair trade, because the trading systems have become incredibly imbalanced. You see it with these the trade deficits that we run. You see it with the big surpluses that other countries are accumulating. So we're looking at tariff barriers, non-tariff barriers, currency manipulation, government subsidies, and in the EU, some of these gigantic fines that they're putting on our tech companies just because they see a big pool of capital. And we're going to push back on those. And at the end of the day, President Trump's been saying tariff is his favorite word. I think reciprocal may be his second favorite word. And we're going to put this at the feet of our trading partners on April 2nd. We're going to come out, talk about who's a good actor, who's a bad actor, to what degree they have put up barriers against us, and it'll be a choice. Either they can drop all the market manipulation and things like that they've done that have hurt American workers. And if they do that, then we could have more frictionless trade, or we'll put up the tariff wall, we'll collect a lot of money, and we will make the system fairer.
Ding, 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 ding. So Treasury Secretary Scott Bessent says, hey, this is about getting better trade deals, okay? We don't want free trade, we want fair trade, okay, where we are getting what we feel like we deserve out of these deals, right? Where we are benefiting the American people when the American people are coming out ahead, okay? And in order to get there, in order to get that point, yes, there's going to be a little bit of pain. Yes, there's going to be a little bit of a waiting period in which we're going to have to basically try to work things out, okay? That's what's currently happening, because the ultimate goal of the Trump administration is to build an economy that doesn't work for Wall Street, but an economy that works for Main Street, okay? The Biden economy was an economy that worked for Wall Street. Now, why do I say that? Well, the reason why I say that is because Biden's economy was inflationary due to government spending, expansion of the money supply, quantitative easing, that led to asset inflation that mostly benefited the rich. Okay, this is why the rich got richer and the poor got poorer under Joe Biden. Okay, the rich are doing amazing. This is why they voted for Joe Biden, because his policies were amazing for the rich. Now, the Trump administration, they're trying to turn that on its head. Now, how are they trying to do that? Well, the way they're trying to do it is that they're trying to drive economic growth with private sector growth, not government spending growth. Okay, the Biden economy was basically an economy built on government spending. Okay, these fake jobs that the Biden administration created, okay, government jobs that they spent money on, and then they said, hey, look, our fake jobs report is amazing. And the mainstream liberal media would go out there and peddle their propaganda. But again, when you look beneath the hood of the economy, again, it's just public sector spending. Okay, that is what's driving the growth. Okay, in the Trump administration, again, they're trying to reverse that. They're trying to create an economy that benefits Main Street and not Wall Street. And again, that's going to take some time. And hey, there could be a little bit of short-term pain in order to get to long-term gain. That is what the Trump administration is saying. Take a look.
Dream, but the Biden administration created this bad equilibrium where the top 10%, people in this room, probably most of the people watching this show, top 10% of Americans are 40 or 50% of consumption. And that is an unstable equilibrium. The bottom 50% of working Americans have gotten killed. We are trying to address that. We're trying to get rates down. And could we be seeing that this economy that we inherited starting to roll a bit? Sure. And look, there's going to be a natural adjustment as we move away from public spending to private spending. The market and the economy have just become hooked. We've become addicted to this government spending, and there's going to be a detox period. There's going to be a detox period.
I think that temporary pain that you've acknowledged, that the president has acknowledged, I think the question becomes, is temporary pain the new transitory inflation? How do you know that we get to the other side of this, and how long do you think it actually takes?
Well, look, there's an adjustment. We'll see whether there's pain. What we are trying to do, I talked about it at the Economic Club of New York yesterday, we are trying to transition from public to private. I talked about we are going to have safe and sound regulation to get our banking system going again. So the banks should be generating loans to private companies. Employment should be from private companies, not from government. And I'm confident if we have the right policies, it'll be a very smooth transition.
And those policies are tax cuts, deregulation, and rolling back spending. Okay, that is what the Trump administration is trying to do. Okay, they're trying to grow while at the same time at least holding our spending the same. Okay, not growing our spending, because our spending always grows, but not growing our spending or even bringing it down. Okay, decreasing spending while at the same time growing at 3 to 4% per year. Okay, again, not an easy task. Okay, not an easy task at all. But this is what the Trump administration is trying to do. They're trying to negotiate better trade deals. And CNN, of course, is freaking out about this in ways that they did not do for Joe Biden, right? In fact, under Joe Biden, they never really acknowledged that the economy was bad. In fact, they told the American people a lie that the economy is good. And now all of a sudden, they want to admit that Biden's economy is bad because President Trump is in office. And Byron Donalds is essentially going to make that point clear here to this CNN anchor, who then proceeds to cut off the interview because Byron Donalds told the truth about the selective outrage over the economy by CNN. So without further ado, let's go ahead and get into this.
But the consumer sentiment is down. It's the lowest it's been in 3.5 years. Spending is down. Certain prices are up. The leader of that study on the economy says what we're seeing is the Doge effect on those numbers. I just spoke to Mark Short, who worked for Trump the first term, and he said Trump's tariff policy is undermining his goals on the economy. What do you say to that?
Well, what I say is that tariff policy is one piece of the overall economic picture. Tariff policy is one thing. You have deregulation at the federal level, which is critical for the future health of our economy. The last administration laid $2 trillion of regulation on the economy and then tried to backfill it with stimulus packages and government hires.
It was other issues as well. It wasn't just $2 trillion.
It was $2 trillion. Listen, I know the facts. It was $2 trillion.
I looked it up because I've heard you say that in another interviews.
It was $2 trillion. It was $2 trillion in regulations that the Biden administration layered on our economy, coupled with massive overspending, which created inflation. That created the picture that we are in today. So what we have to do is, yes, cut regulations. We're going to pass the president's tax agenda, which is reauthorizing his tax policy, and also become energy dominant. Those are the things of how you create the environment for a thriving economy that grows on its own, as opposed to relying on government stimulus and government jobs.
Just to be clear, it was regulations and broader spending initiatives for that $2 trillion number. But you said this in September 2024, quote, "The core issues facing the American people are the cost of food and housing." I just spoke to a farmer who says American farmers are being hammered by Trump's policies right now, and that will only cause the price of food for Americans to go up. I want you to listen to what he said and respond to him.
Mayor Wu, in the city of Boston, how much did you spend?
We don't ask about immigration status and delivering.
Really, this is a state of emergency for America's farmers right now. You put in all of this chaos, and that's what this is. The president came right into office and caused a whole lot of chaos. I'm going to say this, 99%, especially white American and white farmers, voted for this president. And here he is making us pay the piper here at the beginning of our planting season.
Obviously, ignore the first part of that. That was you. But how do you answer this farmer who said the president hasn't made food prices a top priority, as he said he would do?
What I would say is that when you have to unwind the terrible inflation from the previous administration, you have to go through several processes, like I've laid out. The first piece is what DOJ is doing, giving Congress a list of areas where we can make immediate cuts to the betterment of our economy and to the American consumer. When you massively overspend federally, you inject more dollars into the system, you create inflation. That's the way it works. That's what Joe Biden did. We have to squeeze that out. Tariff policy is a piece of that that's raising revenue into our coffers through other means than just raising taxes to help stabilize the federal balance sheet here on Capitol Hill. So those things work together. And so I think it's important for people to understand, as we work through the changes that our economy needs, it will create a more stable economy that grows organically with its own efforts, as opposed to being reliant on government stimulus. More government stimulus is only going to yield more inflation. And that's not going to be to the help of that farmer in particular or any other American.
Yeah, furthermore, what these farmers are really complaining about are not President Trump's tariffs. They're complaining about China's retaliatory tariffs, because that is making it harder for farmers to export to China. So that's what they're actually really complaining about, is that they can't sell to China as much as they were in the past because of China's retaliatory tariffs on President Trump. Now, again, we have to deal with China, and tariffs are our way of dealing with China. It is, I think, unfortunate what is happening to the farmers, but I do think that what we're doing with China is necessary, because we have to get our economy off of China, right? We have to not be dependent on China. If anything, the pandemic has taught us that we should not be dependent on too many foreign countries, especially our enemy like China, when it comes to critical goods in some of our industries. So again, that is what that's all about, right? It's really about the retaliatory tariffs from China. That is what's really hurting the farmers.
We'll be closely tracking this, as you heard from that farmer. Right now, that uncertainty is causing some of these issues that we're seeing in the economy, according to this farmer and others we've spoken to. But we'll wait and we'll watch and see what happens. I want to note, you just officially announced you're running for...
It's amazing how CNN, again, they never expressed this level of concern for Biden's economy, right? We have 4 years of a terrible economy under Joe Biden. When did CNN ever press a Democrat on the economy like this CNN host is pressing Byron Donalds, right? I've never seen this before. If CNN pressed the Democrats on the economy like they're pressing Byron Donalds, who knows? Maybe they would have done something, right? Maybe they would have done a better job. But again, it's just amazing. It's night and day how now all of a sudden all they care about is the economy, when just a few months ago when Biden was in office, they was telling us that the economy was amazing. The best economy ever.
For governor of Florida. And I want to ask you about some of the Floridians that you'll be trying to win over. Those would be veterans. The administration is planning on cutting around 70,000 jobs at the VA. Can you assure each and every one of the nearly 1.5 million veterans in Florida that cuts to the VA won't affect them?
Absolutely. And let's be very clear. The VA has been an albatross of an agency. It is heavily bureaucratic. A lot of our veterans aren't getting the care that they need in a timely fashion, and that's because of how bureaucratized the VA has become. Let's talk clearly to everybody. If you have a bureaucratic delivery system that's not meeting the needs of veterans, should we change that? And the answer is yes. So cleaning out the waste at VA actually will help our veterans be able to get their care faster. And one of the things that we've been trying to do for a long time, and the same bureaucracy has been stopping it, and Donald Trump did this in his first term, is let veterans get the health care they need anywhere in the healthcare economy, not just the VA. You know what the stopgap is? The fact that the VA still hasn't figured out how to digitize medical records in an era when people can digitize any document on their cell phone right now. I can do it right now for you. I can get something in by email and PDF it and email it to you if you wanted to. We can do that with generally people using their cell phones, but the VA is too much of a bureaucratic state, can't figure it out. So change is needed, and that will help veterans.
All right. Well, we will be watching this issue closely as well. And it sounds like you're trying to hint at potentially privatizing more of this. But we've seen issues with that as well. But we'll continue that conversation next time.
We've seen issues with that as well, too. Again, what do these people want, bruh? What do they want, right? Again, they want a big bloated government where the government is basically subsidizing jobs, right? This is what they want. Again, that comes with a cost. That's why we have inflation. That's what annoys me about these people. They literally complain about everything. They complain about inflation, and then when you're actually doing things to fix inflation, they complain about the fixes. So again, what do you want, right? I mean, I'm trying to figure out what these people want. But again, this is the problem with politics. This is also why I feel like I would not be a good politician, because I would just tell the truth about a lot of these programs. No, we can't afford it. I'm sorry, right? We can't afford it. We're going to have to do some serious reforms. Again, the GOP openly, I was just listening to a speech that George Bush gave back 20 years ago. Just 20 years ago, the GOP was not afraid to openly talk about, hey, we can't afford these programs. We got to make these cuts. That actually used to be a thing, right? The GOP used to actually be unafraid to talk about this stuff. Nowadays, it's a little bit different, right? Nowadays, they have to tiptoe around it because, again, you get this type of outrage. But ultimately, hard decisions have to be made, guys. That's just reality situation. And yes, it's going to hurt a little bit, but it is for the good of the economy in the long term, okay? That's what it's about. Because it's either that or hyperinflation. And hyperinflation has destroyed nations, right? That is how you destroy a nation, okay? Hyperinflation. And that is what we should try to avoid. And again, we can't get it done in the next 4 years in regards to reining in this spending, okay? And changing the current course that we're on. We're done, right? We're done. Again, so what President Trump is doing is something that he has to do, okay? This is something that is mandatory for the long-term financial health of this country. And it's going to take time. It's not going to be pretty, but it has to be done. In fact, I said this before, and I'll stick by this. The feds and their piss poor monetary policy is part of the reason why we're in this situation. They should have raised interest rates a lot higher under Joe Biden, but they refused to do it because they didn't want to really, really, really crash the economy. They didn't want to send the economy into a depression, which is what should have happened in order to reset things, because we had spent way too much money. Interest rates were way too low during the pandemic, and the feds should have corrected for it, but they didn't correct it enough. And this is why we're currently experiencing stagflation.
You're on. I want to ask you about this breaking news just coming into CNN that Trump just announced that Mexico will not be required to pay tariffs on any products that fall under the USMCA agreement. He did this, quote, out of respect for the Mexican president. Was Trump's back and forth tariff decision the right call, especially given the volatility of markets? We just heard from that farmer, too, who said this tariff back and forth is just causing mass uncertainty. Businesses hate that. You know that.
Well, look, I'm going to repeat myself a little bit here.
Okay.
It is important that we stabilize not just our economic relationships around the globe, but also the fact that we got to secure our border and we got to stop the flow of fentanyl. Give Donald Trump the opportunity to actually negotiate with the Mexican president and with Canada and with China. You got to give him that opportunity. Because when prices were rising in the United States, I didn't hear CNN talking about that much. As a matter of fact, you ignored most of it while it was hurting the American people. So let the president negotiate on tariff policy. That is what he's doing, and it's going to work out to the better. You didn't cover it the way it needed to be covered. Let's just be perfectly honest.
Okay, well, that's
you let the last administration get away with it, but the American people suffered as a result.
But
no, it's not my opinion. That's a fact.
Okay, no, it's not a fact. Congressman Byron Donalds, thank you for coming on to share your points of view. We appreciate your time.
Yeah, no, it is a fact. It's absolutely 100% a fact. They didn't care. They didn't care at all. Now I'm saying, the stock market. It's like, okay, well, I thought y'all said that the stock market was just for the rich. Why are you so concerned about the stock market for, right? If the stock market is not a reflection of the economy, why all of a sudden now liberals, leftists, people who hate the stock market, right? These are people that want to tax unrealized capital gains. Now all of a sudden they're concerned about the stock market. And it's like, oh, well, I thought this was not relevant to Main Street. But again, that is essentially what President Trump is trying to do. President Trump is trying to help Main Street. That's what he's trying to do. But it's going to take some adjustments, right? We're going to have to adjust the way that we do things. We're going to have to roll back on a government-led economy when it comes to spending, government spending driving growth, and we're going to need real growth in the real economy, okay, where people actually do productive things, right, in the private sector. So I don't want to hear all this boohoo, whining, and crying from the mainstream liberal media, the same people that ignored the state of the economy, changed the definition of a recession for Joe Biden, and they basically did that up until President Trump got in office. Now all of a sudden, they're acknowledging that, hey, yeah, the economy is bad. Again, this is just ridiculous, right? It really is. Get a man some time, right? It's only been a month. Things didn't work. The GOP, they haven't even passed their economic plan yet, right? They haven't even passed their economic plan. These people talk about, what are you doing about prices and inflation? It's like, well, aren't y'all the same people that told us that the Democrats couldn't do anything about it, right? There was nothing that Democrats could do. Now all of a sudden they expect President Trump to work wonders, right? To work wonders in a month, okay? To fix everything in a month. Again, it's amazing how that works. Absolutely amazing. So let me know what you guys think. Make sure you like, comment, and subscribe. Most importantly, share a Black conservative perspective. Peace.